The ocean is so big that we can only explore a tiny part of it. Most of it has never been seen by human eyes, yet alone documented. It's easy to feel like, with all this unexplored environment, it's unlikely that we would ever find any new species of animal living in our oceans today, but it wasn't always this way. Over 200 million years ago, during the days of the dinosaurs, the world was much different. During this time, most of the land was actually underwater, leaving just a small portion exposed above the waves. This left a massive amount of the planet's surface covered in ocean, far more than we have today. And that meant there was a huge array of life forms floating around out there, many of which were absolutely enormous. When we think of prehistoric sea monsters, we tend to picture something like an Ichthyosaur, a 55-foot, 17-meter-long whale monster with a massive head, terrifying teeth, and huge eyes that patrolled the ancient seas. And indeed, these truly are some of the most impressive creatures to ever swim the seas. But they're also one of the most well-known aspects of prehistoric life. That's because fossils of these enormous whales have been found for hundreds of years, with the first scientifically described specimen unearthed in 1811 in southern England. Since then, we've found thousands of fossil remains of ichthyosaurs all across the world, from South Africa to China and beyond. With so many fossils being found, it's no wonder that these creatures have captured the public imagination. But while ichthyosaurs certainly deserve their place in the spotlight, focusing solely on them gives only a tiny glimpse into what the ancient seas were really like. That's because, like today, the majority of animals that lived in the prehistoric oceans weren't huge meat-eaters or gigantic plant-eaters. Instead, most of them were medium-sized creatures, somewhere between the size of a dolphin and a megalodon, that ate fish and smaller animals. One of the best places to look for fossils of these medium-sized animals is a place called Ghost Ranch in New Mexico. Ghost Ranch is home to some of the richest deposits of prehistoric fossils in the whole world. In the 1950s, paleontologists began excavating the site and have uncovered a treasure trove of fossils from sea scorpions to trilobites and even dinosaurs. But among the most fascinating discoveries from Ghost Ranch are a group of mostly unknown marine reptiles that swam in the ancient seas. These reptiles were members of a group called the Mosasaurs. Like Ichthyosaurs, the Mosasaurs were a type of marine reptile. They weren't technically dinosaurs, though many people refer to them as such. Rather, they were more closely related to turtles, lizards, and snakes, but adapted to life in the water. They were also far more diverse than the Ichthyosaurs, coming in a range of shapes, sizes, and lifestyles. Some were small, like modern sea turtles, and spent their lives grazing on plants. Others were huge predators with more than 40 teeth packed into their narrow jaws, capable of eating almost any sea creature. Even though mosasaurs were so diverse, very few people have heard of them, let alone know how amazing they truly were. That's because, unlike the ichthyosaurs, mosasaur fossils are relatively rare, meaning that we don't know as much about them. Most of what we do know comes from sites like Ghost Ranch, where entire skeletons have been found. One of the most famous mosasaurs is a giant predator named Tylosaurus. This 36-foot, 11-meter-long monster looked a bit like a cross between a crocodile and a whale shark. Its jaws were filled with dozens of sharp teeth which it used to slice through flesh with ease, while its powerful tail propelled it through the water at high speed in pursuit of prey. Although theropods were undoubtedly fearsome hunters, even they had to take a back seat to the true titans of the prehistoric seas, the Ichthyosaurs. The Ichthyosaurs first evolved during the Triassic period over 240 million years ago. At this point, the Earth's land masses were still joined together in a supercontinent called Pangaea, and the oceans that surrounded it were teeming with life. The first ichthyosaurs likely looked something like modern dolphins, but soon gave rise to much larger forms. Over the next 60 million years, ichthyosaurs grew larger and larger, eventually reaching gigantic proportions. By the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, the Earth's oceans were dominated by these enormous creatures. Ichthyosaurs could be found in all of the world's oceans, from the Arctic to the Antarctic. But despite their success, we know surprisingly little about them. That's because, unlike the Mosasaurs, few fossils have been found. Most Ichthyosaur fossils consist of just a few bones or a single tooth, making it difficult to get a complete picture of what they looked like and how they lived. However, the fossils that have been found are so incredible that they've left an unforgettable impression on those who have seen them. One of the most famous Ichthyosaur specimens is a 55-foot, 17-meter-long skeleton nicknamed the fighting fish. The fighting fish was discovered in 1958 in a shale quarry in southern England. When the quarry workers first found the fossil, they thought it was the remains of a whale. But when paleontologists arrived on the scene, they realized that it was something much more exciting. The fighting fish is now on display at the Natural History Museum in London, where it greets visitors every day. But while the fighting fish is undoubtedly an impressive specimen, it doesn't tell the whole story of the Ichthyosaurs. That's because it represents just one species of a much larger group of animals. Another well-known Ichthyosaur is the Himalayasaurus. This creature was so large that it earned the nickname the whale monster. It lived during the late Jurassic period, around 145 million years ago, and was one of the largest known ichthyosaurs. Like other ichthyosaurs, Himalayasaurus had a streamlined body that was perfectly adapted for life in the water. Its head was long and narrow with a pointed snout, while its eyes were huge and set far back in its skull. The creature's jaws were lined with sharp teeth that it used to catch and tear apart its prey. The Himalayasaurus was also very agile despite its size and could swim at high speeds when needed. However, it was probably not a very good swimmer. Despite having a powerful tail, its fins were small and may have limited its maneuverability. While these two creatures are undoubtedly among the most famous ichthyosaurs, they represent only a small fraction of the total number of species that lived during the Mesozoic era. Ichthyosaurs were incredibly successful and gave rise to a wide variety of forms, each of which was perfectly adapted to its environment. Some ichthyosaurs were perfectly adapted for hunting fish, while others specialized in eating plants. Some lived in the shallow waters near the coast, while others preferred the open ocean. There were even some that were adapted for life in the depths of the ocean where sunlight could not reach. Sadly, like many other prehistoric creatures, ichthyosaurs met their end during the mass extinction event that marked the end of the Cretaceous period. The cause of this extinction is unknown, but it's thought that a massive asteroid impact triggered a series of events that led to the death of up to 75% of all species on Earth. Among the creatures that didn't make it were the Ichthyosaurs, whose fossilized remains have not been found anywhere younger than the end of the Cretaceous period. But before they disappeared, they had ruled the oceans for over 200 million years. And if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about the sauropod, a group of long-necked dinosaurs that also dominated the seas for a very long time. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other content. We have all kinds of dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures that will blow your mind. And if you love the ocean, we also have plenty of videos about the amazing animals that live in our seas today. Thanks for watching.